It's time to make macaroni and cheese, Southern style. You start with your dried macaroni. I'm going to use 4 cups of it. And you're going to use 1/3 cup of butter and 1/3 cup of plain flour. I'm going to use a half a block of cheese, 6 ounces. You can use shredded cheese. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to use my homemade breadcrumbs, some Parmesan cheese, and milk. It can be any kind of milk. I'm going to use heavy cream, but it can be evaporated milk. It can be powdered milk. It can be just plain old milk out of the refrigerator, but you're going to need 2 cups of it. Just keep it simple. I always have backup milk in my freezer and in my pantry. Cook your macaroni per instructions, but decrease the cooking time by 2 minutes because you don't want it to overcook. And then while the macaroni's cooking, you're going to make your cheese sauce. Now, this is a basic white sauce that you can use with absolutely any recipe you want to make. Say, tuna casserole or a Parmesan sauce. This is just a basic white sauce. Whatever you add to it will change the flavor of it. So you start with 1/3 cup of butter, 1/3 cup of plain flour. And you're going to melt that butter on a medium-low heat. And you're going to add your flour to that. Now, this is so simple. I learned this in high school. This is just a basic little recipe that you keep in your head. And you stir it around until it gets smooth. I was actually using my favorite spoon, but then I'm going to have to grab a spatula to help smooth out the little lumps of flour. And you want this to cook around so that it gets rid of the flour taste. So let it get bubbly and keep getting it smooth. Get that out of there. And you're going to have a lot of, you're going to have over 2 cups of a sauce here that you can add tuna to, you can add chicken to it, you can add cheese to it, you can add Parmesan to it, you can add onion to it. You can do just about anything to this recipe. And this is going to be a basic in your kitchen. It's going to be a wonderful tool for you to not have to use a can of soup every time you want to make something. You can whip up your own sauce. Now, we're putting cheese in this sauce, and cheese is salty, so you might not want to use as much salt as I've used. And then I'm going to use pepper. Some people like to use a white pepper, but I like pepper. So I'm going to use regular pepper in my sauce. And I'm just going to keep stirring it around, and it continues to cook the flour up, and it's all bubbly. This is still on medium right now, medium-low. See, and I'm going to turn it down all the way on low right now because I'm going to start adding the milk to it. Now, I'm using whipping cream. I'm using heavy cream, but you can dilute the cream with water, and I'm only going to add a little at a time. See how that goes? And incorporate. If you add all the 2 cups in there at one time, it's going to be lumpy. But if you add just a splash of it at a time and let it get incorporated, and then add another little splash of it, it's a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup, and you just keep stirring. And this sauce is so easy to make. It's the basis for most anything you want to cook in the kitchen. This is pretty much gravy. I mean, you could add chocolate to it and make chocolate gravy. You could do lots of things with this sauce. So your macaroni has cooked, so you need to drain your macaroni. I didn't try to drain it make a video of it because I almost got burned yesterday. So you drain it, but then you got to spray it with cold water. And the secret to spraying it with cold water is to stop the cooking process. So keep adding, cooking on low, and you're going to get all the milk incorporated in the process, and you're just going to let it simmer. Just going to let it simmer. Your macaroni's quit cooking, And you're just going to let this simmer. Now, while this is simmering, you can cut up your cheese. I'm going to use a half of this block. I'm not going to use a whole block. I'm going to use a half. If you want more cheese in it, by all means, use the whole block. But I'm only going to use a half a block. This sort of helps you spread your cheese out and make it go farther. And you're going to cut it into half-inch cubes. And then you're just going to add those little cubes to the cheese, to the white sauce. And your heat is really low. Now you can do this in a double boiler, but since I'm using an electric stove, it's not going to scorch because it's on low. And you just keep stirring and things will start to melt. And I don't have to stir it the whole time either. I'm going to take my macaroni and put it back in the pan so that when it comes time, I can add the cheese sauce to it and not mess up my casserole dish. I want the casserole dish to be pretty and clean for my Thanksgiving table. So you just keep stirring the cheese sauce, and look how beautiful this is getting. This is just absolutely a gorgeous cheese sauce. Now my husband likes to put a little bit of dried mustard into his cheese sauce, but I'm not going to do that. Dried mustard is a great complement to cheese sauce. And this is just so simple that anybody can do this. And you've practically watched me do it in real time. Now we're going to add the cheese sauce to the macaroni that's back in the pan. And then we're going to stir it around because you don't want to make a mess on your stove or on your counter. And this is kind of thick and ooey gooey. And then we're going to pour it in our casserole dish. Just look at that. Now, I'm going to take my homemade breadcrumbs and some Parmesan cheese and we're going to top it. And it's so simple. Parmesan cheese gives it a little bit of bite to it. Nice flavor. And my homemade breadcrumbs, I made a batch of bread last winter and it wasn't very good. So I just ground it all up and add some herbs to it and put it in the freezer. So I have my homemade breadcrumbs. And then when you get ready to cook this at 350 and you're good to go. I'm going to put mine in the freezer and take it out a couple of days ahead of time and let it get to room temperature before I put it in the oven. This is yummy.